Hello, it's Damian Questiny. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Since we talked about time, I thought it might be wise that we also have a discussion about space. In order to do that, though, we should probably separate time from the idea of space. So that way we at least have a basis to work from. Some form of agreement, if you will. And when we discussed time, we discussed it as trust between everybody who exists within it, the entire aggregate. And we discussed how it's a organizational system for retrieval of memories that is almost like a witness log, where we have all, in a consensus format, agreed that these certain events took place, these certain intensities have happened, these certain spikes of energy and calories have been put into action. And we agree that took place at those particular times. And that goes into the event matrix. And the event matrix is like the Akashic record, in which we can access real and true information if certain criteria are met. So it becomes the evidence, or if you want to look at it, it becomes the software. Time does. Time is the software. Then if this is the software, what's the hardware? Well, the hardware is space. When you remove time from space, you separate out the space-time continuum aspects to it, which is the third force. And we can talk about that another time. What if, for the spiritually inclined, balance. But space actually should be considered to be the boundaries and the limitations in which our experiences and perspectives form around, to give us the ability to name and analyze, to relate. It provides dimension to everything, to ideas. It contains the essence of things, the essence of objects and energies and forces and powers. It has parameters. It can be quantified, but it continues. It continues as long as there is movement into it, where supply and demand can flourish, where reactions can perform. That's what space is. It surrounds things. Anything in time that comes up, any intensity that bursts out, space is automatically provided for that. Room for that object or idea to grow becomes available with space. It's like the great hugger. And what's interesting too is when you think you've reached the final frontier, like in Star Trek, you realize there's more. And then you think you've reached the frontier there, and then you realize there's more, because your perspectives change based on the new knowledge and information you have access to. So space really is the limits in which you impose on things, and then the influences in which you allow that to provide to you. So nothing is provided to you for that which you do not want. And at the intensity value in which you desire. Because space is the resource distribution of compassion. And it has a ratio associated to it. And those ratios are cycles. So time would be the event matrix and space would be the cycle matrix. Space would be the compassion that we see in the world, where time would be the evidence. For those who have made it this far, let's talk about how space can be practical and how you can access space with remote viewing. When you do that, you are basically in two places at once. That is remote viewing. You're occupying two spaces at the same time. And this is where the skeptics out there really have the greatest friction regarding this topic of remote viewing. Because in reality, they don't see any object or idea that can occupy two spaces at the same time. They don't see that, so therefore remote viewing becomes a soft science, right? So consider that as a possibility. Don't need to accept it. But let's just say, for conversation purposes, that technology could exist, which is almost like thinking of it as in the movie Dune, or the books of Dune, there is this race called the Guild. And the Guild have this incredible technology which allows them to fold space. And with this folding of space, it circumvents time for travel. And they are great merchants and great sailors of the sea of space, if you will. And they make money off of transferring cargo, people in space by folding it. And how they do that, perhaps, is what would be considered in today's scientific circles as quantum entanglement. And quantum entanglement is a way to occupy two places at the same time, which is what remote viewing technically does, if you would consider that. And with quantum entanglement, perhaps to access the complexity of any place, location, time, past, present, or future, you simply have to know how to tune in to the frequency and vibration and the complexity in which it harmonizes with the greater awareness of the aggregate system of the world. If you could harmonize and mimic that technology, which another way to think about it is, wouldn't that be the technology of a race that is commonly referred to out there in the cybersphere as the Archons, the great mirror, the mimickers of everything that we do, the reflection, this technology to mimic by recreating that frequency and vibration? Could that be possible? So you can occupy two places at the same time and therefore analyze, retrieve data like a ghost in the room, an apparition, because In remote viewing, you're in one place in a room, perhaps, with a pen and paper, working by yourself or with others. And you are accessing information at a location that is not within your local area. It is in the aggregated area, and you are plugged in to that. And if you are plugged in, is it possible to influence things and retrieve things, like reaching into another dimension and grabbing something and pulling it out, not knowing the consequences? Can you be at an event in space-time? Can there be an agreement between two places, two locations? Would the universe and the matrix in which we live in allow permission to do such a thing, to have your unique fingerprint, your unique signature actually occupy two spaces? Would space give you room to do that? That is the question. And if so, if we can do it, then we can fold space. Perhaps. What do you think? Thanks for listening. Y'all have a great day. Cheers.